I remember thinking that whatever comes, God will be there and we will be fine.
And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine.
How would I describe Nick Thomm? Definitely a man of virtue, an incredible father, a man of deep integrity, a man of joy.
He was always available for other people. Where I saw a lot of other guys his age kind of floundering to know who they were, trying on different aspects of their personality, Nick never did that. He was always just who he was.
He just had the confidence to do a lot of things that I was afraid to try. And so I really admired that about him.
Nicholas was a leader in so many ways. He had a profound perseverance and has had a wonderful grace of acceptance of what life has brought to him.
Jennifer's always been caring, always sensitive to how other people are impacted.
She was unique. Born May 13th. It was Mother's Day. That's the feast day of Our Lady of Fatima. Thus, she's special. Always has been.
Brian Mungo, communications major.
First meeting Nick, fresh out of high school, a big new campus. Just a great guy, seemed very popular, very likable, and was immediately drawn to him.
And there's Jessica.
He and I started hanging out that first day or two. My friend from home was actually roommates with Jen, and I had hung out with Jen a couple times and thought that they might hit it off, and so I introduced them, and sure enough, they did.
I remember going to visit them at Steubenville in their freshman year and meeting Jen, and just their instant chemistry was really amazing and really palpable. And I was like, this is going to be it for them.
We were there for Parents' Day weekend, and here came this gal who was walking over, and Nicholas goes, "Do you see her?" I said, "Yeah." And it was Jen. He says, "I'm going to marry her someday."
Mr. and Mrs. Nicholas Tomm.
The abundant, palpable, tangible love between those two, coming together in that perfect sacrament, was undeniable.
I generally hire people who I think has a sense of mission. And interviewing Nick the first time, it was clear to me that not only did he have a sense of mission and a sense of calling, but that he and Jen shared it.
Nick was hired at Ave around 2001, and he started off as a cub reporter for the Credo newspaper.
So he came to us as a journalist, as a writer, researcher, and very quickly demonstrated his faithfulness to the church and his desire to live a holy life.
Nick was on the air with me with his, he used to do the news and close off the news with a little thing he called the fascinating facts.
You wouldn't necessarily listen to the whole Kresta program, but I always wanted to listen to the first 3 or 4 minutes because Nick would do the news headlines and then Nick had his fascinating fact.
If Nick wasn't there that day because of whatever reason, people would call up and would say, what's the fascinating fact?
And now your fascinating fact for the day: you can't hum while holding your nose. Second fact: in the next 5 seconds, everyone listening will have tried it. Go ahead and do it. For Ave Maria Radio News, I'm Nick Thomm.
So in February 2003, Al Kresta came down with a terrible infection, okay? It's called necrotizing fasciitis.
So 6 months I was gone. I know after a while, Teresa couldn't do her morning show in my afternoon show, so Nick became the full-time host.
The professionalism in the way he stepped in and assisted me, and then also ended up filling in quite a bit for Al, it impressed me so much. Me coming from the secular media, working with people that had 10 times technically the experience that he did, but didn't carry it off nearly as well.
He stayed with me 12 years. He would have stayed longer. Before Nick, the longest a producer had been with me was 3 years. So I'll give you some idea of how good he was.
To be honest, I never looked at him as a potential spouse for quite some time.
I was
really,
firmly in the friend zone at that time.
It wasn't until a little later that, things became clear and the blinders were lifted from my eyes, and all of a sudden I thought, wow, this is the person that I've been waiting for, that I've been praying for my whole life, and he's right here, and who would have thought? So I think that time of friendship was really important because we really got to know each other, and outside of the romantic, emotional feelings, we really knew each other by the time we started dating, and I think that was really key. Took about 10 tries to get that picture because he would not open his eyes. We painted on the little mustache. Yeah, so we had celebrated his birthday, and so he was just kind of tired that night, but nothing too abnormal. And then we got up, went to Mass the next day, and he was driving, and all of a sudden he looked over, and I could see that the right side of his face was drooping, and he had some drool coming out, and he was twitching a little bit, and I thought, oh gosh, it's got to be is this a stroke? That's the first thought in my mind. And so he pulled over into the turn lane and stopped the car and made me get out, and he got out because, how do you explain a seizure for the first time?
I mean, I think he was 27 years old. I think he just had his 27th birthday. And we're just wondering what in the world is happening here.
I will never forget where I was. I was standing at my kitchen counter, and Jen called me, and she was bawling her eyes out. I usually have some word of comfort, but I didn't have one.
I remember feeling just this tremendous grief and sorrow about what was coming and what lay ahead for our family, and not knowing. You don't grow old with that kind of a diagnosis when you're in your 20s.
It was a lot of grace to just say, we have two choices. We can be angry, or we can just say, Jesus, I trust in you.
When we get married, we don't realize, not enough of us in the Catholic Church, that it's for the other person. That's what they show in terms of understanding that it's about this self-giving love, no matter what situation you're in.
The Tomm family has always had this sense of optimism going forward, that there was always a next step to take. You never really saw them being worried about how long they've got or what's the next step. They were in it for the long term.
I just remember this sense of like, take a test. And I found one. And I took it. And then I looked.
The same week that he got this really tragic diagnosis, they also had the extraordinary joy of new life in their midst. We took that as a kiss from the Lord, not only for Nick and Jen, but for all of us.
It turns out that had we not conceived in that moment, it would have been 1.5 years before we even would have been able to try.
We figured, okay, the Lord is talking to us here, and he's telling us that, yes, the brain tumor is a problem, but it isn't the end of things.
We didn't see anything for quite a long while. Really? He continued to work. Mm-hmm. He took up running. He was going to be in charge, not the tumor.
What I always found amazing, that even though Nick had this diagnosis, that they were still open to life.
We went through 2 adoptions. We fostered for 5 years, all while dealing with Nick's treatment and health crisis.
And so when these opportunities to adopt would come forward to them and people would ask them, they would say yes.
I think a lot of people on the outside probably thought we were crazy. There's no fear. I mean, we are 100% confident in God's plan and what he has going on. After they did radiation the second time, his voice, his speech was impacted immediately, even worse than it had been. And he tried to be on the air. He tried to do a pledge drive.
We were probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the broadcast, and, I would speak a while, throw it to Nick. And Nick seemed to be struggling a bit. So I wrapped it up, came to a break, and Nick just turned to me and said, I can't do this. And he left. And he never came back. And we learned, as I understand it, that the second round of radiation probably stopped the tumor, but it also had negative side effects.
It's in the worst possible spot. It's high value real estate. And so he just, in humility, removed himself because he knew that that's what had to happen.
I'm a trauma therapist. So I actually, day in and day out, see people handling things either really well or really poorly. And I will say that Jen authentically is running on grace. She's actually doing this very well.
This is the man I married. This is the man I loved. He's still my best friend. And whatever comes, he's not going to be alone. So we are actively praying for a healing still. We pray for a healing if it's God's will and a happy death if it's not, because he'll be healed one way or the other.
What was so remarkable about both of them was that they just tackled one step at a time.
There's power in suffering if you choose to use it that way.
Still hoping, why not? Why not pray for a miracle? Yeah. So it's God's will, be done. And that's what we have learned over all these years, is to pray, okay, Lord, we really like this, but your will be done. Always your will be done.
It's not the healing that we all hoped for, but most people don't get 15 more years with somebody after they have that kind of a diagnosis. And so it's been really, I think that's been our miracle, is the amount of time that we've had.
I don't understand how people can go through this without faith. It's such a huge part of who we are. And so for us, there was really no option besides Jesus, I trust in you. That has been our family motto, Jesus, I trust in you. And the moments that I can't pray anything else, those words come out freely.
I think Nick and Jen are both completely guided by Jesus Christ and the Lord, and that He has a plan, and everything is short term when it comes to eternity. There are setbacks and there are some challenges, but in the grand scheme of things, we're all trying to make it to heaven. And I think Nick's actions throughout his life, I can't be a judge of that, but Nick's actions through his life, Jen's actions through his life, and what they're going to instill in their children are going to help ensure that they see each other again.
Call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace.